Hello and welcome to the second Q&A video in the Game AI Mastery course. In this video, I'll show you the new scene that we'll be working in. I said this a little while before, so my goal with this course is to make a city block and fill it with all sorts of AIs. So I created a road that goes all the way around the level. And as you can see, we have some buildings in the background. I also made an underground area, which looks like a sort of a subway station. So you have the entrance right here, and I added some objects. This is still unfinished. I didn't want it to take too much time. So what I'm going to do is every once in a while, I will improve this scene some more. So we have the underground area here, and we have a bridge that goes above the road. You can go up the stairs. So this is still unfinished, but you have a little area here. Like this is supposed to be a supermarket. And this is, as you can see, this is the parking area. So the supermarket has 2 levels. And here we have a little plaza with a statue over here and a few buildings. And here we have the entrance. I placed some garbage over here. And here we have sort of like a vendor or a kiosk. We have some phone booths everywhere. And here I have a back alley with some garbage, some crates. So these assets are made by DJ Mason on Sketchfab. They're very good. I have a link to their portfolio in the description. You can go ahead and download these models if you want. And they have a lot more of these models. So I tried to add a few objects here and there, mostly garbage. And here is a utility panel that I downloaded from Polyhaven. So here I added a sort of Greek temple, something that would grab the attention. I have a bunch of statues over here and a few columns. And in the center of the plaza, I have a kind of a food court. We have some benches and tables over here. And here maybe this is a food vendor. I use the textures provided by DJ Mason. They're good enough. Yeah, so the goal is just to get something better than the scene that we had before. We are not trying to reach AAA level quality here. So if you can just make something that's better than you had before, then you'll be on the right track. So here we have the landmark, which is this nice statue over here. And this is supposed to be the entrance of the supermarket. So if we go over here, we have the entrance to the subway area. We can go here and emerge from the other side of the level. This is still very empty. So here I have some tables and benches, some garbage. Yeah, it's still a work in progress. And here I can emerge from the other side of the level. Here I made these buildings in ProBuilder. So almost everything was made in ProBuilder. And I didn't bother much with the details. That's why it looks a little blocky. So for example, this ramp over here looks quite a bit blocky, but it doesn't matter. It looks good for now. If I wanted to add more details, I'll probably take that model into Blender and make it more smooth and more detailed. So in here we have a little alley with some trees. And on the other side, I added a terrain with a mud texture and a few dead trees. And in here, I added some placeholder buildings. So I tried to use prefabs as much as possible. Everything you see is a prefab. That way, if you have some trouble with the colliders, or if you want to add a NavMesh obstacle component to them, then you can do it in the prefab. So once I made the level, it was time to generate the NavMesh. So in my NavMesh surface, I clicked on Bake. However, I had to make sure that, for example, the buildings, they should have a NavMesh obstacle with the carve set to true. That way, they don't generate the NavMesh underneath their geometry. And as I explained in a previous video, that is a problem because if you use sample position to spawn NPCs, and you have parts of the NavMesh underneath some objects, you could spawn NPCs inside of geometry, and we don't want to do that. And the NavMesh in Unity is not yet smart enough to automatically remove the geometry underneath objects. So for example, for these stairs over here, I added a NavMesh obstacle, which is a child of the object. So here it is. And as you can see, it is a smaller cube. And the purpose of this cube is to remove the NavMesh from underneath the stairs. Yeah, and we still have some problems. For example, here, if I add a NavMesh obstacle to this cube, then the top of the cube is no longer part of the NavMesh, and this is a problem. So a solution is to duplicate this cube and set it as a child, then remove the mesh filter and all the other scripts. Let's just keep the NavMesh obstacle and remove the NavMesh obstacle from the cube. So now we have the cube here and the NavMesh obstacle over here. So if I go to my NavMesh surface and bake, now we have the NavMesh that generates on the top of the cube. However, if you go inside the cube, we have no NavMesh here. And this is exactly the result that we want. So I spent some time going through the level and making sure that the NavMesh is correct. Then I baked the lighting. So now I'm going to show you a few time lapses of creating this level while I answer your questions. Okay, let's start with the question. And guys, sorry if I butcher your username. So Thomas Zakiewicz 8473 said, "Hi, how to make the NPC to detect my player and attack him? It seems your detection system detects only game objects with the NPC component. They should detect also game objects by a tag or a layer." So you can create the sensors however you like. The most important thing is that you have to detect NPCs, whether you do it by a tag or a tagging script. In this case, our NPC script could be considered as a tagging script. So do it however you want. The most important thing is that in any advanced behaviors, like combat AI, the first thing that you have to take care of is detection. Your NPCs have to detect their enemies to be able to attack them. So in the last videos, we're starting to see some combat behaviors. However, up to this point, we have mostly been creating individual systems because you can't create an AI behavior in a vacuum. You need some mechanics that your AI and player can use, because you have to remember that the AI is just a control script. It's like player input. For example, if you have a player character that you can control with a gamepad, you still need to implement some mechanics like locomotion, how they move, how they jump. If I press this button, what happens? So that's what we've been doing so far, and we'll do more of that because we need first to build some mechanics and then open these mechanics for AI code in order for AI to control your game entities. Next question by Nafis Ansari 43. Are you also planning to add in vehicle AI and making them interactable with humanoid AI, like NPC driving a car? And one more question, are you planning to add verticality in your NPC, like so it can navigate, jump through gaps, more like parkour, but not to the extreme? Yes, and in fact, I should have started the course with some more fundamental stuff like NavMesh links and the possibility of generating multiple NavMeshes for different agents, but we will catch up on these things soon. So basically for vehicles, or if you have agents that are bigger than the regular agents, so for example a monster, what you do is generate another NavMesh and create a new agent type. As for jumping between gaps in the NavMesh, or for example using ladders, then you can do that with NavMesh links, and we will see some example of these very soon. But on YouTube, there are tutorials on these topics already, and they are very good. That's why I didn't give this a lot of priority. For me, the most important thing was the behavior tree, having a functional behavior tree with all the bells and whistles. For example, the viewer, the utility theory, all our decorators and actions and composites. This was the real juice of game AI. So if you can do it, then the rest is rather easy to implement. For example, you can split your NavMesh into many areas, and we will do that soon enough. And this takes me to the next question by Whisper Canvas. Do you know anything about pedestrian system and how it is developed? So a pedestrian system is a simple wander behavior, but you split your NavMesh into multiple areas. So for example, you can give the road a specific area and the sidewalk another area. And for the road, you give it a much higher cost of traversal. So your pedestrian will always prefer sidewalks. And if you want your pedestrians to cross the road, then you can create a third area for crosswalks and perhaps play with triggers. So for example, if your NPC wants to cross the road, then they can check if the light is green or red, then wait at the crossroad and cross the road when appropriate. So now that we have a city block, we will explore behaviors like these in the future. So this was a question by user City8. After looking around, maybe they can investigate some of the corners and cover points nearby and then return to their default position. Yeah, so this was a comment on the combat AI of the sentry. Yeah, you can definitely expand the behavior of the sentry. For now, they just turn around to investigate, but you can add a sequence where they go to random points. And you also asked about a cover system. Yeah, and this is important because the AI needs to know where there is safe to hide. When you ask this question, we didn't yet have an interruption system, and I didn't yet cover the interruption systems. So both the self-interruptions and interrupting lower priority tasks. But now that we have that system in place, then we can add a cover system. And what a cover system basically is a list of points in the level where it is safe to hide. So for each point, we can have like a direction, and the NPC can decide where they need to go if they are in combat, or if they are a civilian and wants to run away from an enemy, then they can hide behind the cover. So the challenge in here is to have a script that will generate these points automatically, then perhaps mix this with some form of manual generation. So we don't have to do a lot of work in generating these cover points, but at the same time, we can have the flexibility in defining them. So we will see an example of this soon. So I received some comments that are not exactly questions. They express the fact that some people have difficulty following the series. So I answered both of these comments, but I got no response back. So guys, I encourage you to ask questions. If you have trouble following in a particular video, I'll be happy to help. You have to know that programming games, and especially programming game AI, is quite a challenging task. It's not something easy. It's quite challenging to do. And I'm doing my best in this course to simplify things as much as possible because I have quite a bit of experience making game AI. However, my experience as a game developer does not exactly translate to an experience as a teacher. So I'm still learning on that front. And thanks to your comments and feedback, I can improve and make better videos for you guys. So don't hesitate to tell me exactly what you're struggling with. I can always make a video where I go back to the stuff and maybe make some clarifications. So it's a learning process for me, but if you can't keep up, then you will not get as much value as I want you to have from this course. And that's, at the end of the day, that's my goal. My goal is that you get a ton of value and go back to your game projects and make amazing game AI and amazing code in general. So if you have trouble doing that, then please ask your questions. Although this course is not for complete beginners, so if you are a complete beginner, then I encourage you to learn more about C# and especially C# in the context of Unity. Then you can come back to this course and try to keep up. Edit Air4K asked, one request I would have is a small video to explain how the Animator was set up with different animations, so we could change our own models and animations in it. Thanks for the video. So I've been changing the Animator all throughout the videos. I didn't make any changes on it off screen, but sure, I can go back to the Animator. So let's go back. This is our guard Animator. So in the base layer, we have a locomotion, which is a blend tree. We have a few parameters here. We have the speed, the strafe speed, aim, and turn. If you double click on locomotion, then you have all these motions here. We have an idle motion, which is itself a blend tree. Then we have walk and run. Here, if speed is set as a value, for example, 3 or 7, then the character will start running. If it's set at negative values, then we'll be in these motions here. We have a walk backwards and a run backwards. So I use the same animation for walk and run. except here the speed is set at -1 for both run and walk. So the x coordinate is strafe speed and the y coordinate is speed. So if I set strafe speed to a value of -3 or 3, then the character will strafe left or right. As for the idle blend tree, it is a one-dimensional blend tree with the turn parameter. So if the turn parameter is 0, we'll play the idle motion. If turn is set somewhere between -0.5 and 0, the character will be turning left. And if it's set somewhere between 0 and 0.5, the character will be turning right. Then we have another layer on top of the base layer, which is the carry gun layer. So in here, we'll play the rifle idle animation. So this is the rifle idle animation. And then we have the aim animation. If we set aim to true, then the character will be aiming. And here for the layer, we make sure to use a mask, which is the upper body mask. So the upper body mask only affects the arms and the head, not the lower part of the body. And that's it. Now to control this animator, we have the NPC animator script over here. In this script, we compute the forward speed and the right speed, and we set speed and strafe speed to these values. Then if NPC is carrying a gun, we set the layer weight to 1 on the second layer, and we activate the gun object. Otherwise, we set the layer weight to 0 and deactivate the game object. Then we set the aim parameter to npc.aimIn. As for the turn parameter, we set it in npc look. So this is the npc look script. I'm going to navigate down to late update. So in late update, I'm computing the animator turn parameter. If we're not looking, we're basically setting this parameter to 0. Otherwise, if we're looking at something, then we modify it in npc look at position, and specifically in update animator turn parameter. So we compute the angle between the current forward direction and the target direction. Then we clamp that angle between minus max angle and max angle, with max angle set to 30 degrees, and we divide by max angle. That way we have a value between -1 and 1. Then we simply set animator turn parameter to this angle, but we do it in a smooth way using a lerp. And that's pretty much it. This is how we provide the values for the animator, and the animator takes these values and animates the character. So if we want to change the mesh of the character, then you can either use the same animator. You can also create an animator override controller if you want to change some animations, or you can create your own animation controller, provided you have the same parameters and the same layers, just to avoid problems. I also received some comments asking me about who I am and my personal experience. Some of you guys want to be inspired by my story and my skills as a developer. So I like to consider myself as a messenger. The important thing is the knowledge that I'm providing you guys. As for who I am, I had an education as a software engineer. I had some great teachers in C, C++, Java, Pascal, and more languages like PHP, JavaScript. They did a good job teaching me the basics. However, I believe my skills as a game developer come from my personal projects. I started a little late, so I was at university when I discovered programming. I started making my own games. I read a lot of books on game development in general, on game AI, game scripting. And I've always wanted to make the games that I was playing. That was my main motivation back then, and also my main motivation right now. So you play all these amazing games and you want to make something like that, or maybe something different. I believe as game developers, we share the same motivation. So the most important thing that I can give you, the most important advice, is that motivation is overrated. You can't rely on motivation alone to make games. You have to set up some kind of discipline. So for example, you set clear goals. I want to do this, I want to do that, and you do it every day. So if you want to make some game, then you define the different steps that you need to take. For example, this week, I need to do this and that. Then when you are in front of your computer today, then you define exactly what you need to do today, but also what you need to do within the hour. So in this coming hour, exactly what do I need to do. Then you sit down and do it, or you stand up if you want. If you have a standing desk, it's always healthy to stand from time to time. So you just do it no matter whether you're motivated or not motivated. If you learn this habit of doing what you want to do, whether you're motivated or not, whether you're hungry or not, no matter what, then this will give you a better chance of becoming a skilled game developer and making the games of your dream one day. And you have to be somewhat blind to your own incompetence. So when I started making games, I was very incompetent. I made a lot of mistakes. I lacked a lot of knowledge. However, I was oblivious to all of that. I guess you have to be a little bit stupid and not see your own downfalls, and you have to do it long enough to actually become good. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but overall, it comes down to how much time do you spend making games. If you can reach like 1,000 hours making games, or like 5,000 hours, 10,000 hours, then I can guarantee you that you will become a master at this. No matter what mistakes you make, no matter how much successes or failures you face, at the end of these 10,000 hours, you will become a master. And you have to be inspired by something within yourself. If, for example, you are inspired by what I do or what another YouTuber does or what another game developer does, maybe one day they'll release a game that you hate, or they'll stop making videos, or they'll make videos on topics that you're not interested in. So indeed, you will lose your source of motivation if you put that source of motivation outside of yourself. So if you need inspiration, if you need motivation, try to find it within. If you have these things within you, then no one and nothing can take it away from you. It will be like you're driven by something invisible that other people cannot see, but only you can see it. Whether other people agree with you, whether they understand what you're doing or not, nothing of this matters. And of course, you'll make these mistakes. I made these mistakes a lot. Okay guys, that's it for this video. Thank you for following along. The channel is almost at 650 subscribers. I'm happy to help you guys understand how to make game AI, how to think about these challenges, and ultimately how to become better game developers, or as I like to say, game dev beasts. That's our ultimate goal, and we will reach it. I'm so excited to implement new game characters in this new level that I've created, and I'll keep improving it with time. Thank you for watching. Remember to hit like if you liked the video, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.